Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Oneness Junkie podcast, hosted by me, Lydia Smith, a self-proclaimed Oneness Junkie. Oneness Junkie is a place to be inspired, encouraged, and supported. Learn from the individuals who are working to make the world a better place. Let's meet today's guest. Hello, everyone. It's Lydia with the Oneness Junkie podcast and YouTube channel. And I'm so excited to be here today. It's been a while since I've created an episode, and I love bringing back the guest that I have with me today. Let me just go ahead and introduce her. I have Dr. Michelle LaMassa Dawson with me. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, so happy to be here. Thank you.
And welcome back, you guys. This is Michelle's probably maybe third, or probably this might be her fourth with me. So we're going to have fun, and we have a fun topic to bring up today. We're going to talk about relationships because everybody has somebody that they're in a relationship with or have spent in their lifetime, and they're so important to our joy and happiness in life. So we're going to talk about that because sometimes they're not always joyful, right?
Yes.
So I want to tell y'all before we get started how I met Michelle. And by the way, you guys, I've already gotten permission to call Dr. LaMassa Dawson Michelle throughout the podcast. So we've worked together. Personally, I hired her, but also we've done several podcasts together. It's just easier for me to call her Michelle because I feel like she's a friend anyway by now.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I'm going to introduce how I actually met Michelle. So I was watching a movie. I think it's on Amazon Prime. It's called Emotion 2.0. And there's a lot of people on that movie that are talking, and a lot of good information, but just something about Michelle's presentation of what she was talking about and the words she was using, it just really spoke to me and spoke to my heart. And so I just Googled her and just thought, okay, she's a human. I wonder if she's like taking clients. And so I reached out to her, and I was able to hire her and work with her. I don't even know. Do you still take clients, or are you just teaching practitioners now?
So I have a practitioner that works with me, and I have a waiting list. So, I'm not taking new clients specifically, but if they do want to work with me, then I put them on the waiting list. And
Okay. If you have an opening.
if I have an opening, then I can get them in. But in the meantime, I have a fully certified practitioner that works with me. And so, so that's kind of cool that it's really growing in that way. And so I love that.
Yes, I'm lucky. I was one of the ones who got in.
Definitely.
Lucky me. So anyway, I'm going to have Michelle introduce herself and talk about a little bit about her background and what kind of work she does do and what she's kind of up to today. And then we're going to dive into the conversation together of relationships. So go ahead, Michelle.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you again, Lydia. It has been, some time now since we've known each other and, become friends. And it's just really an honor to be here. And I'm just grateful for the work that you're doing in this world. It's wonderful. So I am Dr. Michelle, and again, it's true, like that whole title thing is great because I did earn it. But I also, when I work with people and I get to know people, I really just, it is Michelle. So what my specialty is recall healing. And it kind of, I've been led, I say sometimes like God writes straight with crooked lines. So I always thought that I was going to be a therapist. I wanted to be a counselor when I was a teenager. And so, but, I earned a social work degree, and then I ended up, when you go through life, you think that it's going to be a certain way, but then, you're led so many different directions. So as a single mom and with 2 babies, I was trying to support myself. I was a religion teacher, and I earned a master's degree in religious studies, and I was a campus minister. And so, but I loved the kids. I love the teenagers. I love working with the people and just seeing and talking to them. And then when I got remarried, I went back to school, and because I always wanted to be a psychologist. And so here I was, and I found myself in school studying, and I thought, wow, these are really great in theory, but it doesn't pan out in practice. And then I took biopsychology and health psychology, and that really resonated with me. And at the same time, my aunt was going through a breast cancer. And so my cousin, who was an osteopath, he found German New Medicine, went to a workshop, met up with my mentor, Gilbert, and, he ended up inviting him to San Diego. I took a recall healing workshop, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so I finished my master's in psychology, and then I found Saybrook, which is a school that is like first of its kind to do a mind body medicine practice doctorate. And so it was just beautiful. And so even today, like it's kind of unheard of to have a cohort where so many of the people in your cohort actually finish their doctorates, because I mean they have a special title for people who've done all their classes called ABD, all but dissertation, because it's like that. And so I have two really dear friends that we started the PhD together, and we finished within weeks of each other.
Wow.
So it was just really beautiful. And that for me, the mind body medicine was exactly what recall healing was all about. And so I started a lot with cancer patients and working a lot with cancer patients. My love has always been in marital relationships, and I've been around the block a few times, so I had to like learn from the school of hard knocks, about many different things that can help. And so many people, it's been really beautiful to understand and know and learn about recall healing, and all of the things that we carry out in our life are not just related to us. And so the tools that I teach people really have saved marriages and saved babies, and it's just amazing, to see. And so it's a little bit about my educational background. And so I'm the director of Recall Healing United States. I'm the co-director of Recall Healing International. I teach people around the world about recall healing and these tools and how to be a practitioner as well. And then I'm a wife. I'm a mama. I have 3 grown men, boys, my boys. And then I have 10 grandchildren.
Wow.
So all of the grandchildren are boys, and 2 are girls. So it's like it's just kind of amazing. So that is where I am. And so it gives me a lot of food to keep going and doing my own work for sure. Because when you see what your kids are going through, it's an invitation to to do your work. And now I'm a new mama of a puppy, and our
Oh,
dog. We
what
got
kind?
a fox red lab. I never even knew that there was red labs, and so his
Wow.
name is Rusty.
Sounds unique.
He's super cute. And so he's brought life into our house, and with our older dog is 12 years old. And so they're just like, it's like WWE SmackDown all the time at our house, rolling around and running around. And I was like, oh, this is like when I was with my little brothers and then with my boys. And so
That's
that,
funny, and
yeah.
that gives new life to the 12-year-old,
Absolutely. So that is one of the reasons why we wanted to, bring in a puppy, because it is, and it's just constant, it is like having a baby. I just had forgotten how much like having a baby it is, but it's been really amazing and just
Are
fun.
you getting your sleep?
Yes, actually, he was kennel trained when he came to us. So he was 8 weeks old when he came to us, and the breeder had done a really great job of kennel training him.
Wow.
So he only really cried just a very little bit on the first night when we put him in the kennel, and we're like, it's okay. And it's like the kennel's right by my bed, and he sleeps probably first month he was up at 5. So I was like, oh, I had to learn a new schedule. But then he started sleeping, and now he sleeps until right 7:30. And
So
so we're
you're ready to get up?
like, So
Yeah,
it's
that's
great.
awesome.
Mhm.
Just as a tidbit, I just celebrated my dog. I threw her a sweet 16 birthday party on Sunday.
I saw that was so sweet. I love that. I was just like, "Oh my gosh, that's so great." I love that.
Well, I think I threw her like a one-year-old party at a park with a bunch of dogs and stuff, and then I thought, "I don't think I've thrown her a party since then, so we'll have a beginning and an ending," because I don't know how much time, we'll have left together, but I wanna savor every minute, so that was fun,
Absolutely.
documented that. And she's a dachshund, and we served hot dogs.
Oh, that's so great. I recently saw when there was when it was Halloween and there was a hot dog, that they put on the dog, as a costume.
I have that,
It's
yeah.
so great. I love
There's
that.
like the little wiener dog is walking down the street as a hot dog. I know with it's got mustard on the
Yeah,
back. I
exactly.
have that. Yeah, my
Oh,
friend made
that's
that for me.
that's fantastic.
Good. Okay, so let me see if because people are probably going, "What is recall healing?" So give us the like 3-minute explanation of what recall healing is, so people have a concept where the information you're going to be sharing is kind of derived from, the thoughts you have about relationships and how you come up with those. So if anyone's interested in recall healing and researching it and Googling it, they can go back and do that. So let people know what is recall healing before we just start talking about relationships.
Sure. So, and relationships, some of the things that I've learned about relationships comes from, my broader experience and study. And so, but it all complements each other. And so that's what I love about it. But recall healing comes from a combination of German New Medicine, which is the science behind what we do. And Dr. Hammer was he was an intern, and he had gotten his son had gotten tragically shot. There's actually a new documentary about it,
Wow.
and it's pretty amazing. It's called The King That Never Was, and it's about the prince that shot Dr. Hammer's son. So, in any way, Dr. Hammer discovered this medicine because of what his own experience. So, his son dies, he develops a testicular cancer. He's thinking, I do everything I'm supposed to do, and yet this is happening. So, went back to study and to research, started looking at CAT scans, and started to discover that everybody that had the same kind of cancer had this spot in the brain, looks like a little bullseye. And so that led him to further study and realize that it was all based on how we form in our mother's womb and the embryology of the layers of our tissues and how it forms and our conflicts. And so when we have certain conflicts, it downloads into the body according to how we're feeling. And this is all based on how we've been raised and our education and our culture. All of that comes into play. He understood that there was two phases of every disease and every illness. And so this whole system is a science. And when you apply what the diagnosis is to biology, then you really get a deeper understanding. So it helps us to understand there's really this mind body connection. And then Dr. Sabah was a student of Dr. Hammer, and he was a Jewish rabbi, psychologist. He would go into the people's homes in the south of France, and he would talk to them. And so he learned and he brought in, incorporated the work of Mark Forshey, which is a timeline, which you're familiar with, and also a family tree. And so it's Mark Forshey talks about the time 18 months before a child is born, the birth, the whole first year of life, and how this is called the project purpose, and that we have, these that we're driven, and so I share in the story of like my mom's trauma. She was super traumatized. She wanted to choose death by suicide. When she got pregnant with me, she prayed that I'd be a girl because a girl was going to save her life. Well, then I grow up as that message to save my mom's life, so there was boundary issues and had to deal with a lot of that. But once I started getting healthier, my work was about helping people stay alive. And it didn't dawn on me until much later. And then she named me Michelle for the Beatles song. And I grew up and I married. George was my first husband. John was my second husband. I live in Georgia. I'm married to Mark. And I was like, finally moved beyond the Beatles. And one of my students tell me, "Oh no, Michelle, Mark Chapman killed John Lennon." And I went to Chapman College for a softball camp and thought about it to go to school. It's crazy. So we think we choose, but we're kind of driven by these messages that of our parents' unfinished business. So that's the project purpose. And then we talk about the ancestors. So if you're named for somebody, or if you line up with them, based on birth order number, you carry the unfinished business like an invisible loyalty, and it manifests in your life. And so that's recall healing kind of in a nutshell. And so when I work with somebody and there's a diagnosis, because we work with the biology, because people go to therapy for years and years and years and they really don't get anywhere.
Right.
I did. I was into therapy like 15 years before I found recall healing. And then it was like once I started applying these tools, I got a lot further and a lot more transformation occurred, as a result of that versus that, traditional psychotherapy, which is great and it serves a purpose for sure. But this also allows for a person to go deeper. And so that combined with the challenges of my marriages, to understand, to realize like, okay, I'm carrying all this unfinished business of my parents and grandparents and great grandparents. And then the work of Harville Hendrick really had an impact on me for relationships, and it really kept me in my second marriage for a very long time, and it kept me looking at myself and doing my work to understand that my marriage was only a reflection of what I carried inside of myself, my body, my trauma. So I've learned a lot of things along the way that I incorporate. And we do have a relationship workshop. I'm not sure if I'm teaching it next year. I need to check and put it on our. It's every other year for the thematic one. So that's kind of it in a nutshell of what I do.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And for when you were talking, I wanted just to point out that people who feel desperate that they've been doing talk therapy for 20 years and they don't have any feelings of that things are shifting, I just encourage you to look outside of traditional therapy and just allow yourself to explore new things that could possibly, I mean, maybe you're hearing this podcast for a reason and it would, the creator, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, showed up in your life for you to check this out and see if it could even if it doesn't solve all your problems, which is not going to, it can provide stepping stones to get you further along your evolutionary journey, right?
Absolutely. That's
Doesn't solve your problems, it gives you tools to manage them, right?
absolutely. Because, I mean, life, if we look at life as really a learning lesson, every little opportunity that comes up in our life is an opportunity for growth and learning and transformation. The alternative is to stay stuck in that pain and suffering. I don't know many people. I do know many people that just stay stuck, but I also know many people that realize like it's no fun to just stay stuck in that yuck and to perpetuate that over and over. And of course, it's going to show back up because you haven't done your work. So,
Right. And
no,
and I love helping people realize when they're sharing their story or whatever they're dealing with and just say, I want to remind you, you have a choice. You do have a choice. And the feelings of sadness, depression, anxiety, worry, nervousness, all of that does not feel good, but you have a choice to choose to work the muscle of happiness, gratitude, appreciation, joy. Like you have to work that muscle because it's not an automatic response. And the more you work it, the more you can't allow yourself to swim in the other energy. Although you go back there, but then you don't stay there as long because you realize you have a choice when you know that.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally, you're so right, Lydia. And especially about like when, if a certain pattern has shown up in your life, for instance, depression. depression is a pattern, and our body gets used to that pattern. So when we have a big trauma, then it can activate that old pattern to help us. But when you don't look at it as like helping because you feel yuck, that actually saved that individual's life. If we start to look at it from that perspective, then we realize, okay, we have power to do something about it and move beyond that. And so it's what you do with what you know. It really is.
Yeah, and I do also want to just let the listeners know that I believe what I'm a believer of the message that you just shared, which was everything good and bad that happens to us is for our own personal growth and evolution, because that is actually our purpose on why we came to this lifetime and this earth, is to evolve and grow and just to constantly go to different densities of dimensions. And so, and I mean that from a, like as you evolve and become more, just I'm trying to think of the word, like more, um, just more evolved as a soul, because it's my belief that when we die, we go back and then we re-enter to live again, because here is where all the experiences are, and this is where we are you our learning school. You said the school of hard knocks. I mean, that's basically earth. Coming back to earth is a
Right.
school of hard knocks, but that's because our whole purpose is to go back to the creator. um,
Absolutely. Do you know about that new documentary? It's called After Death. It's
no, but I want to watch it because I'm
really,
all into this kind of
it's
stuff.
really cool. And in grad school, I was introduced to, like the whole idea of near death experiences and, even like this whole idea of past lives and things like that. And, before I didn't believe that at all. And so, but just this movie is all about the near death experiences and how it totally talks about Earth being that place. It's not a lot of fun sometimes, but it really is what you make of it. And so you have that choice. Like you said, you always have a choice, even if you don't think you do. It's just that you have to think outside the box sometimes, right? And so this movie is by Angel Studios, and it's a really great little flick, and it's actually
Where is it? Is it on
playing.
Prime?
No, it's actually playing in the theater. So you have to,
Oh,
yeah, you got to go, you got to find it, and then it'll probably show up on your
I'm gonna
Facebook.
go this afternoon while it's raining.
Perfect. So that's a perfect,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a great little, it totally gets you thinking, and it also gives you hope. I really liked the fact that, the people's experiences and that there really is a life after death. And,
Yeah.
so that was really
And
beautiful.
everyone's on their own personal journey of unfoldment to understand certain things in life. So I don't really, when other people don't believe like me, it's okay, because I'm on my own journey and I'm being exposed to things that I don't need other people to validate because I'm experiencing them. So
Right.
having the understanding is because I had the experience and now I know the truth. And I
Absolutely.
will say that I got introduced in April, maybe March. It just showed up on my Spotify, this like podcast thing about oneness. And I was like, oh, I'm going to click on that and see what that was about. And, that's AI delivering me things in my Spotify account that AI recognizes my podcast is called Oneness. So it's feeding me other oneness things. And it was this guy named Aaron Abkey, and I love him. He's like my new teacher. He's young. He lives in Austin. I want to have him as a guest, but he talks about the most spiritual text he's ever, and he's a person who grew up in a very religious church, and then he's learned new things. But anyway, I totally align with him, and he talks about this book called the Law of One. It's the Contact with Ra, the Law of One, and it's like when I listened to that, all my cells
Oh, that's
started
awesome.
firing of resonance. And
That's cool.
so, and it talks about our relationships, and so I'll tie that back to us. So now that we understand a little bit about recall healing, let's dive into. So I asked you if we could discuss relationships. We have the holidays coming up, and you mentioned that to me earlier, and I was like kind of laughing, like, oh gosh, yes, the holidays. Everyone loves to kind of go have that memory of being with their family, but now that we're all adults, it just has there's a lot of triggering that happens, but we want to remind you that you're empowered and you have a choice. And when you get triggered, it's for your good, it's for your evolutionary good.
And when one finger is pointed at somebody else, three are pointed back at us to do our work, right? So
So welcome. So when someone triggers you in the holidays this year, say thank you, thank you. You just helped me to be in my Earth school and learn something new. So instead of
absolutely.
resisting it, but that's hard to do, right? In the moment.
It definitely is, and so looking at all the places. So a couple things that are kind of helpful is that one thing is when something happens like that and you are triggered, in that is to become the observer, to take a step back and just like if I was observing somebody else experiencing that, what might I think, what might I say, and that what, this is more about them than it is about me, but it's triggering me. So let me check in about where this began and how many other times I felt exactly the same way. And let me give my little girl self some love. Let me help her to understand that it was never her fault, but she experienced all of these things, and to give her some value and give her some love for what she did experience. And, I often say a prophet doesn't speak to his own land, because in our families, we have different beliefs. We have different, several times I have a brother that doesn't talk to me, and it's okay. It's his choice. And, I'm not angry or bitter over it. It's just, it's better for me in the sense that I only want people that want to be in my presence to be with me. If they don't want
Mhm.
to, that's totally okay. You have a choice,
Yeah.
and so I have to honor and respect that. And I work with many people that have division within their family, and it's not what we want, it's what we need. And in recall healing, we say this quite frequently. Nobody wants to have a sickness, nobody wants to have these lessons. It's not fun. But if you can kind of change the perspective to say, I made this choice before I even came to this earth plane, to have these experiences, maybe to get to a higher spiritual plane, to evolve, as you have said, and that this person is helping in that. And maybe they made the agreement to actually be the way they are in order for me to get where I want to be. It totally takes away that whole victim. And, it really transformed the way I thought about my ex-husband and husbands, just to really begin to say, you know what? We all made choices to get to where we are. And it really has served to get me to where I am today.
Yeah.
So that's the holidays are that.
And just kind of going back to the original, like the thought of relationships, maybe not necessarily in context of the holidays. That's just kind of something that we were, realizing was happening soon. But with Thanksgiving being a big, time for that. But we're in relationship the moment we come out. Well, that moment we're in our mother's womb, right? That relationship. And I learned something really fascinating, that the eggs of me in
Yes.
my mom
Yes.
were in my grandmother.
Yes. Isn't that so crazy?
Fascinating.
I just saw that. It's so funny when you said that. I thought of that image right away.
You
I'm
knew
just
where I was going.
so
So,
amazing.
yeah, I existed inside my grandmother, and just that connection and sweetness to think of that, thank God I, loved her very much.
Right? It's so true. And so some of the hardest lessons are from the more painful things and the traumas. And when we say trauma in my work, it's the stress of the daily life. I work with a lot of Eastern and Central European, people. So they've been through a lot of like war, and currently
Yeah.
we haven't here in the United States as much.
Right. And oppression too, right? Over there.
We certainly have experienced a lot of things here as well. It's just not overt. And so subliminally and, on an unconscious level, and that stress of the daily life, divorce, our parents, trying to make ends meet, different kinds of things that showed up in the family, all of that is trauma. And
Yeah.
it's the way, and when you deal with a parent that has mental illness, that, for a child, it's total confusion. So I was recently, and you're right, we are relational beings. We're not made, we really, like, even if we're alone and not in a couple relationship, we go to places, we interact with places. It's constant relationship. And then you have work relationships, you have family relationships. And so whether or not you're married or have a partner or whatever, it doesn't really matter because you're still in relationship all through your life. And so we talked earlier about like how important communication is. Communication is key. And people tell me all the time, I don't like conflict. Well, conflict to me is not conflict, it's communication. And sometimes it's more challenging to talk about the things that are hurting us, or, that we would like to see maybe a little bit different. And we have to come from that place. But that is all part of communication and relationship.
I want to mention here when we're talking about communication that a lot, and I want to give people this access to think of things differently. So when people approach you, I had a situation where somebody said, you're trying to tear me down. And I was like, does that resonate with me? I actually had a lot of feelings of love and admiration towards the person. And because I was comfortable addressing the hard conversations, that person saw it as a tear down, but that was how the individual was interpreting it from their glasses, from their space. Because when that person was telling me that I was trying to tear them down, I was like, I don't have that feeling in my heart at all. I'm actually loving you. I feel love for you right now, and I'm sharing what I'm seeing. But um, people don't always perceive the focus that your intention is, because I'm just going to use the term rose colored glasses. Their glasses, their view, their perception is interpreting what you're doing. And so you have to recognize they have a responsibility for how they feel about other people, right? Whether you're doing that or not. So don't always own, you don't have to always own what other people are telling you about yourself. You need to check in, like you said, and say, how am I feeling about that? Do I feel like I'm tearing this person down right now? That's not my intention. You know?
Right. And, just in line with that, I had seen at one point in my journeys of a meme that said, if you don't heal your childhood wounds, you bleed all over everyone. And so to me, when a person might contact or have contact with me in that regard, and it's interesting, Lydia, I had a similar experience show up, not, in the last month, where a woman thought I was making fun of her and laughing at her. And I was just like, clearly, you don't know anything about me, because there is no way in the world that I would ever do such a thing when I have dealt so much with my own trauma. I help people, I walk with people. So, perception really is 100% about how we've been raised, what we've been taught, what we've experienced, our genealogy, our family clan, all of that comes in with the way we interpret what's going on right before us. And so
Mhm.
the more trauma a person has, the more that they're going to interpret it as, oh, I'm being attacked, I'm a victim. But when they start to do their work and realize, wait a minute, I have a choice, I have power, I can say no, I can create a boundary, I can check in, hey, I'm perceiving this, is that true? And then check in with you, and then you have the opportunity to say, absolutely not, I'm feeling so much love for you and so much joy. And we also have to recognize that so many times that people have been so abused, so wounded, that they can't receive our love at all. And so it just feels too much like they can't do it, and so they create a way to push you away so that they don't have to be in a relationship. Pretty crazy.
Right. And there's another tool that comes to mind while you're talking, which is when somebody does something, and again, like Michelle said, you're the observer and you're observing the circumstances coming at you. If you can be in a place of the observer and not the reactor, and you could just say, did you intend to hurt my feelings with that comment? Or am I missing something? Is that not your intention? Just to stop them in their tracks and
Mhm.
take it to like, I'm going to choose not to react. I just want clarity. Let me clarify this before I have a reaction.
Exactly.
And
And
it takes all the power away from the perpetrator.
yeah, and when you're in relationship and you're having an actual conversation, it's really hard to hold that space sometimes.
I
And so,
know.
so mirror, empathize, and validate are some tools that I learned through the Imago work, through
Oh,
getting
yeah. Uh-huh.
and so when you mirror back, like, hey, I hear you saying that. I imagine that might make you feel this way or that way. That makes sense, and or coming from your own perspective, I'm feeling like this. Is it true? Is it absolutely true? And so you're kind of combining Byron Katie's
I was
work
going to say that sounds like Byron Katie.
with embodiment therapy, but it's like it comes, whatever is going to help in that moment, and especially to not engage. I have told my clients many times, you cannot fight crazy. Some people really truly are mentally ill. That has saved their life. And so, but when you engage with them, you lose the battle automatically rather than just becoming the observer, recognizing, oh, this person is maybe a little bit wounded or is thinking outside of reality for this specific thing. Let me just honor where they're at and let me walk away. Let me not engage with this because I'm just going to lose right away. It's not worth it.
Yeah, that's so good. You know, um, just going back to communication, if it's so difficult because we're trained in our environments. I'll use that word when we're being raised, like what's appropriate and what's not. And I would say like probably 85% of our training is not for full expression
Oh,
because our parents are not always as healthy to give us that environment. And if you're capable of, because you're the adult, you're the parent, if you have a conscious sense of self, then you can allow your children to say what they need to say and not and be the observer of whatever your children are
and not
saying.
be triggered by that, right?
Right. And so then you raise them in an environment where they actually are free to express themselves. And then they learn that it's okay to, and then you teach as they grow up, like appropriate um, communication and expression, that's empowering and productive communication, right? Not just fully
Really.
expressing their thoughts. But anyway, so when we grow up in an environment where that's not the case, we're told like, okay, well, children are supposed to be seen and not heard. And so as adults, we shut down and we never, if you don't ever put yourself in environments that teach you how to communicate or that it's okay to communicate or whatever self-development stuff you have to do to get that feeling, then you can go like almost your whole life and never feel like your communication matters, right? I'm sure you deal with that a lot with your
Ah,
people.
oh, for sure. And, in fact, one of the clients that had a cancer has a lot of money and was building a home, but her husband was so strong that he didn't listen to anything that she wanted. And she had been taught this very thing of not, not speaking,
Yeah, I don't matter what I
or
say.
no,
It doesn't matter.
whatever, just do whatever you want. So this beautiful home created was nothing of hers. And so in order to kind of get into her own identity, she ended up buying another little place at the beach and is fully decorating it on her own and doing everything from her space because it was a practical way to gain her identity and to realize I do have a right to speak. And you're so right about to be seen and not heard. And it actually gives me even another understanding of about even myself of having carried extra weight in my life And that message of you should be seen and not heard. And I wanted to be seen. So having extra weight is a way to be seen and not heard. Don't speak, Michelle. You don't matter what you say. I don't want to hear you. Boom, too. That idea of like, corporal punishment was real, you know.
I had a father that was more about what is the important, and I'm talking like as my father, like I'm the most important thing in this relationship and everyone's here to serve me. And so I really was trained how to put my needs on the back burner and serve others. And so as an adult, I'm really having to work the muscle of like honoring myself and choosing me over like someone else. And so it's a work in progress.
Absolutely. It is a work in progress. I say progress, not perfection. And we better our best. We're looking and it's none of our business what people think or say about us. And we mind our side of the street and we work on ourselves to allow ourselves to grow and to transform and to create boundaries. Nobody gives you a high five for boundaries. No, like they don't like it. So it's just like, no.
Let's say this. Most people who are not comfortable with your boundaries either don't exercise their own, or you are infringing upon what they're trying to take over on you. And so the boundary is a resistance and they have a reaction to it. So anytime someone has a reaction to you setting a boundary about what you need, recognize that and ask yourself, why is this person so resistant to me taking care of my needs? And I know my needs more than that person does. So I'm the determiner of what boundary is right for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
let me ask you something, because I didn't ask you before we got started. I know normally we try to wrap it up at the end of the hour. We're going on 41 minutes. How much time do you want to spend more talking about this? Because obviously we could go forever, but we know the listeners aren't going to want to have a forever conversation.
Right.
And I feel like there needs to be a part two.
Oh,
Because
we should do a part two.
I
That'll be
feel like we just barely scratched the surface, but so much stuff is good for people to kind of consider when they're suffering in relationships and realizing that you get to choose. You do not have to be the victim of your relationships. Find ways to find empowerment in your relationships, and then hopefully come from your heart and a love space in every relationship. I have relationships that don't work for me, but I want to send them love, and I'm just choosing to send them, like you were talking about, you're not angry, at old relationships, you're just not in them anymore. And so coming from a space of love does not mean you have to engage with them. It just
no.
means you're clean and clear in the community.
Yeah, Lydia, that's a super great point. So many times when you have toxic family, it's not good to be in direct relationship with them. So creating that boundary, and that really is okay to say, I'm worth it. And it's okay for me to say no and limit my exposure to this kind of toxicity. And that if I can't protect myself particularly, or I don't have a right, then I really need to eliminate that, entirely. And it's really okay to not be totally in connection with those kinds of relationships. Super hard. It can bring up guilt, and just, to recognize that the individual is worthy and worth, that you don't have to die for a marriage. You don't have to, you die for your mom or your dad or your anybody. That's not what we're asked of, and that's part of the lesson of just recognizing this does not feel like it's in alignment with me.
Right. And if anyone's asking you, like if a parent is asking you to quote unquote die, but I'm just speaking from a perspective of that your priorities and your needs don't matter more than theirs do. That's what we're kind of referring to, as dying rather than literal. Then consider that that's not healthy for you to be in that dynamic, and it's hard to let go of like an abusive relationship because you're so used to it.
Right.
You
And
know how to navigate it.
Absolutely. And your neural pathways resonate with that familiarity until you do it enough or do something different enough to create new neural pathways. Then these old patterns are still going to show up. And, it is quite literally that stress of the daily life when you constantly disregard what you say or what is good for you. And you just, just so that you don't have conflict, you do, oh, they want you to do this and they want you to do this, and you just keep doing it. That quite literally becomes, do you want to die for that? Because if you do that enough, your brain, your body will take over to help you to deal with what you're literally stressing about, you're spinning your wheels about, that you have no peace about. Say no when you mean no, say yes when you mean yes, and find a way to do that that's acceptable to you.
Yeah, that's good. Do you have a off the top of your head, and if you don't, it's okay because I wasn't planning on asking you this, but autoimmune, what you were just describing, does that create an autoimmune disease where you're constantly fighting inside but not externally with someone? Because that's an immune disease that is fighting itself when the immune system is fighting its own immune cells.
Well, it can be something like that. Autoimmune in general, and there's so many different autoimmunes, and so it kind of depends on which one. But underneath, as a general, like, category with autoimmune, it means that one or both of the parents didn't want the child. So then the child grows up with this invisible loyalty to disappear. So the autoimmune creates a way to disappear. And obviously, if a person is not wanted, then they're going to do everything in their power to please people, to do that, and always to sacrifice themselves, right?
That was me.
Yes. Okay. And
I
so,
was the fourth child, not wanted.
right. Well, and I was the first not wanted, outside, outside of marriage, and like, yeah. So that, and so we have to learn that if you are here walking on this earth, you absolutely were meant to be, even if our parents forgot that they made the agreement to bring us into the world when they did. And so autoimmune is part of that, to really recognize we really are supposed to be here, and we don't have to disappear in order to help mom or dad. They resolved their problem, they had you. And so now it's time for me to stand up and to say, this doesn't serve me well. I need to say no to this or yes to this. And so that's autoimmune.
That's interesting because when I was like 5, 6, 7, I had eczema as a little kid, and that's an autoimmune reaction. Eczema.
So eczema for me in recall healing is a simple separation. So it's like when mom goes to work, okay, then the brain sends a message to microulcerate the skin. And then when mom comes back, or on the weekends when you're more connected, then the eczema will appear during that time. That's just one example. So I don't know
Yeah.
exactly, but that is so when you break it down to the actual diagnosis, you get more specificity and it helps in a bigger way. And so yeah.
Luckily, I got rid of it, so whatever I was doing, I got rid of it, so that was good. I don't have it anymore.
Resolve the problem. You eat healthy too, so there is that too. But it's constant. It's the conflict plus what lifestyle.
Yeah, that's great. So, I think it's a good, 48 minutes is probably a good amount of time to just be talking about anything in general. So we'll wrap it up. Do you have any, the new year is coming. I know you're super busy. Tell them your website, and then like if you want to share anything that's coming up in like January with our audience in case they want to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the new year, every year I teach workshops, and it is a way to learn about recall healing and to be able to apply the tools. I teach levels 1, 2, and 3. Level 2 is in January, but it's not level 2 as like, oh, it's a higher thing, because I always go over the the basics and the understanding and teach people about that. It's really the work, the things, diseases and illnesses that I cover. And so level 2 talks about like the whole structure, digestion, a little bit about weight, ears, nose, and throat. It's kind of like, skin and bones. And so it talks a lot about muscles and just all of these kinds of aspects, and then the basics as well. That's in January. And then I have an intro workshop in March, and I have a cancer workshop coming up in April. So there's a lot of amazing
Opportunities.
opportunities. My website is soultreetransformations.com. We also have Recall Healing USA, that is, kind of up and running. It's been kind of hit or miss, but it's more up and running now, and we're developing that. So ultimately that will be a place, but that's where you can find me. You can do, inquiries, and I can get back to you. I have Isa, who is a great practitioner and fully certified. And so we can help support people along the way, and, just in their everyday stress, have some new tools to be able to navigate the territory a little better.
That's wonderful. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Is there anything like you came to the podcast episode with that you weren't able to express that you want to like leave the audience with? Or do you feel like you covered what you wanted to say?
Well, I thought that we would talk a little bit also, more about relationship, but I think it was exactly the way that it was supposed to be. And like you said, there might be,
Part
relationships,
two.
marriages and things like that. But really the basics is that everybody that comes into our life is a reflection of what we carry in ourselves. And so if somebody hurts you, or you have this, triggering, it's an opportunity to kind of look. And that really is the bottom line. And the more that we focus on us and how we feel about the certain situations, take 100% responsibility. It's not our fault, but it's showing up for us to transform.
Yeah,
And
to heal.
if we use that and we give gratitude for that, which is hard to give gratitude for like some of our suffering, but to make us to be into the men and women that we were always meant to be and evolve to that place, it is something to give gratitude for. And so I just, I think that is great. I think this was a great time, and we said what we needed to say.
Yeah, and I feel like we touched on the depth of relationships. Like we just went straight to the source,
It
and
was
what
cool.
happens is a lot of times so we did a high level overview, but we got deep. And so what's typical is you want to point the finger at, well, with my husband or with my wife or with my boyfriend or my girlfriend or my mother or my sister or my brother, and we're like looking at these individual relationships and saying, oh, I need to work on my relationship with that person or that thing, when in fact we just went to the source and
Mhm.
talked about how do you resolve all
Yeah, it
conflicts
was
with
so great.
all relationships with
Yeah,
anyone you encounter. We talked about the tools to focus and look at how to live
I know.
life in relationship in general.
It was so amazing, and I love how it just unfolded the way that it did. And so and that we did go to that depth, and just,
And
to
it's powerful when you get it. When you get it, you're so empowered. Oh my God, it's wonderful. So
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, you're always love having you on. You're always welcome back. If you want to do a part two or something and like do lighter, higher level type stuff and talk about marriages or topic specific or whatever, I'm totally game for that. And I just wanted to remind everyone that the whole intention when I started oh my gosh, what is today? It's tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of my podcast. I started it on 11/11/2021. So tomorrow is November
Wow.
11th, 2021. So this is awesome. I love having you on my anniversary episode.
No kidding. And I think I got to be on one of the first
Yeah,
episodes with
you did. That's
that. Is
awesome. Yeah,
so
I started
cool.
it on 11/11 because
Woo.
11/11 is a powerful number. It's
Absolutely.
all actually it means all ones too.
Yes.
So oneness. So I just wanted to remind everyone that the purpose and intention of me creating this whole podcast in the first place was to highlight people like Michelle who are using their time and their talents to make the world a better place. And I love highlighting people like that. So if you are a individual or a nonprofit and you want to tell your nonprofit story of what your nonprofit's doing to make the world a better place and who you're serving and how you're serving them, I want to tell your story. So y'all reach out to me at onenessjunkie.com and inquire about me doing an episode with you. And so we can continue to highlight all the individuals and all the people and places that are making the world a better place, because that's what we're going to focus on, is highlighting the light in the world and not focusing on negative, which exists.
It definitely exists. And Lydia, thanks again. And it is such an honor to be on your anniversary show. That's amazing. And it's amazing.
I just realized it's divine. I didn't even plan it.
So cool. And so yes, we'll definitely do. And I just love how we can be spontaneous, and whatever is supposed to show up,
it flows.
It really just does. And so
yeah, we're soul sisters. I feel connection with you.
Absolutely. So,
all right, great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a great weekend. And everyone, so please subscribe or go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. It's onenessjunkie.com. Talk to you later. Bye, Michelle.
Bye.
We've reached the end of this episode. If you'd like to continue with this inspirational journey, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. If you are a self-proclaimed oneness junkie, get yourself a t-shirt and spread the message of oneness in your community. And finally, if you have a story to share or know someone that should be a guest on this podcast, contact us at onenessjunkie.com. See you next time. And remember, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Compassion starts with you and me.